William Caleb Cale Yarborough, born March 27, 1939, is an American farmer, businessman and former NASCAR Winston Cup Series driver and owner. He is one of only two drivers in NASCAR history to win 3 consecutive championships. He was the second NASCAR driver to appear on the cover of Sports Illustrated. The first was Curtis Turner on the February 26, 1968 issue. His 83 wins place him 6th on the all-time NASCAR Sprint Cup Series winners list, behind Bobby Allison and Darrell Waltrip, who are tied for 4th with 84. His 14.82% winning percentage is the 9th best all-time and 3rd among those with 500 or more starts. Yarborough won the Daytona 500 4 times, his first win coming in 1968 for the Wood brothers, the second in 1977 for Junior Johnson, and back-to-back wins in 1983 and 1984. In 1984, he became the first driver to qualify for the Daytona 500 with a top speed of more than 200 miles per hour. 320 kilometers per hour. Yarborough is a 3-time winner of the National Motorsports Press Association Driver of the Year Award, 1977, 1978, 1979. Beginnings: Yarborough was born to Julian and Annie Yarborough in the tiny, unincorporated community of Sardis near Timmonsville, South Carolina, the oldest of 3 sons. Julian was a tobacco farmer, cotton gin operator, and store owner who was killed in a private airplane crash when Cale was around 10 years of age. According to his autobiography, Cale Yarborough attended the Second Southern 500 in 1951 as a young spectator without a ticket. Yarborough was a high school football star and played semi-pro football in Columbia, South Carolina for 4 seasons and was a Golden Gloves boxer. He made his first attempt in the Southern 500 as a teenager by lying about his age, but he was caught and disqualified by NASCAR. In 1957, Yarborough made his debut as a driver at the Southern 500. Driving the number 30 Pontiac for Bob Weatherly, starting 44th and finishing 42nd after suffering hub problems. He ran for Weatherly 2 years later, and finished 27th. In 1960, Yarborough ran 1 race, and had his first career top 15, a 14th place finish at Southern States Fairgrounds. He again ran 1 race in 1961, finishing 30th in the Southern 500 driving for Julian Buesink. In 1962, Yarborough ran 8 races for Buesink, Don Harrison, and Wildcat Williams. He earned his first top 10 at the Daytona 500 qualifying race, when he finished 10th. 1960s, Yarborough started 1963 without a full-time ride, but soon signed on to drive the number 19 Ford for Herman Beam. His best finish was 5th twice, at Myrtle Beach and Savannah Speedway, respectively. He began the next season driving for Beam, but soon left and finished the year with Holman Moody, finishing 6th at North Wilkesboro Speedway, winding up 19th in points. The next season, he drove for various owners before picking up his first career win at Valdosta Speedway driving the number 06 Ford for Kenny Myler, rising to 10th in the final standings. Yarborough drove for Banjo Matthews at the beginning of 1966. Despite 2 consecutive second-place finishes, he left the team early in the season and ended the year driving the number 21 Ford for the Wood brothers. He won 2 races in 1967 at the Atlanta 500 and the Firecracker 400 for the Wood brothers, but dropped to 20th in standings because he only ran 17 races. Yarborough also ran the Indianapolis 500 in 1966 and 1967 driving Volstead Fords. After running the season-opening Middle Georgia 500 for Budmore Engineering, finishing 21st, Yarborough ran the rest of the season for the Wood brothers, winning his first Daytona 500 in a duel with Leroy Yarborough, the Firecracker 400, which made him the second driver in history to sweep both Daytona events, and his first Southern 500, garnering a total of 6 wins that season. Running a limited schedule, he finished 17th in points. The next season, he won his third straight Atlanta 500 along with the first NASCAR race at Michigan International Speedway, the Motor State 500, and 6 pole positions. In 1969, Ford Motor Company produced a Cale Yarborough Special Edition Mercury Cyclone Spoiler II, and they also produced a Mercury Cyclone spoiler. It was a white Mercury Cyclone, fastback, in white with a red roof and stripe. The spoiler II was outfitted with a special aerodynamic front end. This was a limited edition homologation special that was made to satisfy the NASCAR 500 car minimum production regulations. There was only one engine choice available in the Mercury Cyclone Spoiler II, a 351 cubic inch Windsor. A very similar car was also produced by Mercury in 1969 as a white car with blue trim as the Dan Gurney Special. 1970s, Yarborough continued to drive a limited schedule for the Wood brothers in 1970, winning his second consecutive Michigan 400 and the American 500 for the first time, along with one of the Daytona 125-mile qualifying races and 4 poles. At the end of the season, Yarborough was released after Ford withdrew factory support for NASCAR teams. He drove 4 races in 1971, posting 1 top 10 in Daytona in the number 3 Ray Fox-owned Plymouth. He also ran in the Indianapolis 500, finishing 16th in a Gene White-owned, Firestone-sponsored Mongoose Ford. The next season, Yarborough ran 5 NASCAR races, his best finish coming at Michigan driving for James Hilton. He ended the season with 2 consecutive top 10s driving for Haas Ellington. He also ran his final Indianapolis 500 in a Bill Daniels-sponsored Atlanta Foyt, finishing 10th. Yarborough mostly focused on driving USAC races in 1971 and 1972. In 1973, Yarborough returned to NASCAR and ran every NASCAR Grand National race in a season for the first time in his career, driving the number 11 car Care Chevrolet for Richard Howard. He won 4 races, including his second Southern 500, the National 500 and the Southeastern 500 at Bristol, in which he led every lap, and had 19 top 10s, finishing second in points. In 1974, Yarborough won a career-high 10 races, but lost the championship by nearly 600 points. Midway through the season, Yarborough's team was bought by Junior Johnson with Carling's sponsorship. Yarborough swept both races at Riverside International Raceway, captured his 4th Atlanta 500, and his second consecutive Southern 500 and 3rd overall. Despite his successful 1974 campaign, the team began 1975 without major sponsorship, and missed 3 races, before Holly Farms became the team's primary sponsor. He won 3 races, including sweeping the events at Rockingham, but dropped to 9th in the final standings. The following season, Yarborough won 9 races, including 4 in a row late in the season along with the Firecracker 400, in winning his first career Winston Cup championship. He repeated his 9-win performance in 1977, a season in which he finished every race and did not finish outside of the top 5 during the last 11 races of the season, earning him his second championship. Another highlight of the season was his second Daytona 500 victory, earning him a cover appearance on Sports Illustrated, the second NASCAR driver so honored. He also scored 2 victories in IROC 4, finishing second in the standings. In 1978, his team switched to Oldsmobiles and received new sponsorship from First National City Travelers checks. He matched his previous career high of 10 wins, including leading every lap of the Nashville 420, his 4th Southern 500 and 1st Winston 500 at Talladega, and won his 3rd consecutive championship, clinching it at the American 500. In IROC V he captured 1 victory, finishing 4th in the standings. Yarborough began the 1979 season with Busch beer sponsorship and getting into a fight with Donnie and Bobby Allison after the Daytona 500, when Donnie and Yarborough wrecked while racing for the lead on the final lap. This was the first NASCAR 500-mile race to be broadcast on live television in its entirety, through CBS Sports. The confrontation and the exciting race that led up to it are credited with starting the mass growth of NASCAR. 36. Yarborough went on to finish 4th in the standings, winning 4 races, including the Coca-Cola 500 at Pocono Raceway and the National 500 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, 1 pole, and finishing 3rd in the IROC V standings. 1980s. Yarborough won a career-high and modern-era record 14 poles in 1980, captured 6 races including sweeping the events at Rockingham, and scoring wins at Bristol, Michigan, Texas and Atlanta. Yarborough barely missed out on his 4th championship in 5 years, losing the championship to Dale Earnhardt by 19 points. At the end of the season, Yarborough announced he was leaving the Junior Johnson team and would run a part-time schedule for the rest of his career. He was replaced by Darrell Waltrip. Yarborough won 55 races while driving for Johnson from 1973 to 1980, compiling an amazing winning percentage of 26.57%. Yarborough competed in 18 races in the 1981 season in the number 27 Valvoline Buick for MC Anderson, winning his 4th Firecracker 400 and his 5th Coca-Cola 500 at Atlanta, finishing in the top 10 a total of 6 times. Yarborough competed in 16 races in 1982, winning 3. Including his hometown Southern 500 for the 5th and final time. He also ran the 1981 24 Hours of Le Mans, finishing 13 laps before a crash ended the team's efforts. In 1983, Anderson closed his operation, and Yarborough moved to the number 28 Hardee's Chevrolet owned by Harry Rainier, competing in 16 events. He won 4 races, including his 3rd Daytona 500, his 6th Atlanta Coca-Cola 500, and swept both events at Michigan, along with 3 poles. In 1984 he repeated by winning his 4th Daytona 500, becoming the second driver to score back-to-back wins, the Winston 500 at Talladega, a race that featured 75 lead changes, and the Vanscoy Diamond Mine 500, along with 4 poles. Yarborough also captured the IROC 8 championship. In 1985, after his team switched to a Ford, he won his first Talladega 500 and scored his final win in the Miller High Life 500 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. He also finished 8th in the final standings of IROC 9. In 1986, Yarborough won his final career pole at the Firecracker 400, and had 5 top 10 finishes. He scored a victory at Talladega during IROC X and finished 3rd in the standings. In 1987, he left the Rainier Lundy team and purchased Jack Beebe's Race Hill Farm team. Yarborough took the Hardee's sponsorship and began running the number 29 Oldsmobile Delta 88 as an owner, driver, posting 2 top 5 finishes. He ran his final season in 1988 in an Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, entering 10 races and posting 2 ninth-place finishes. He retired at the end of the year.